I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything.
So just to give a bit of background about Dr. Chris Alicia, she is the owner of Melanated Apparel. She is a serial experimental skills gatherer, lifelong learner. She was born in Kingston, Jamaica, to parents who really taught her the value of education and financial independence, and how entrepreneurship can be a path to both. She is an educator by training who finds fulfillment in using her unique combinations of skills to create value. Another one of our guests, B. Robinson, is the founder, creator, owner of the Black Genius Art Show. He is an educator and multifaceted media artist, born, raised, and superheroed in Baltimore, Maryland. He has a background in film, 2D animation, and business marketing. In 2020, Robinson opened his first art showroom. He labeled Genius Juice. GG is a hybrid gallery space that displays revolving arts, spread custom collectibles, wearables, and has art incentives for youth and young adults. Another one of our illustrious guests is Miss Rebecca Dupaz, the owner operator of Middle Finger by Bex. Rebecca is a Louisiana native. She's an educator, a photographer, entrepreneur, award-winning poet, whose writing, performances, and contribution to the poetry community has been recognized in Philadelphia, Baltimore, and beyond. Angela Hardy, who is with us today, is the owner of the Simple Wellness Day Spa and native of Baltimore. Angela has certification as a trichologist, a holistic health and lifestyle coach, holistic hairstylist, sister locks consultant, advanced, I'm not gonna, watch me mess up this word, advanced kinesiologist and say the word for me.
Radiologist?
There we go. That's also what she does. She serves as a leader, creator, ambassador, and pioneer in the field of natural and holistic hair. So now that you have some of the backgrounds of our guests today, one of the things that I do want to say that I noticed about all of your bios that it had a bit of is it had a strong connection to education. I really love to hear from you guys about how exactly that shows up in your work. And we could start with Angela.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. So for me, education is the core of everything. My purpose is to elevate people to be able to be self-sufficient in some of the things that they're doing. Whereas as a health coach, holistic health coach, I don't want my clients to come to me for every little thing. I want you to learn how to make your own juice and smoothies. I want you to learn how to incorporate certain herbs and sea moss and teas and recognize different feelings. And with your hair, understand as a trichologist, which is the study of hair loss, scalp diseases, and disorders, connect the dots. Understand that what you put inside your body has an effect outside your body. And so sometimes when you're seeing a excessive amount of dandruff in your hair and you're wondering, is this dandruff, why is my scalp so dirty? Think about, what did I eat? What can I relate to this discomfort that I have going on? So for everything that I do, I incorporate education. I taught as an adjunct professor at Morgan State. I taught natural hair because we weren't always taught how to manage our hair. Cosmetology schools do not teach how to handle natural hair. They're doing better now, but at some point in the past and more common now, they would show you how to alter the texture of the hair first. But something as simple as combing the hair and starting at the ends and going up to the roots, that's not something that we've always was taught. And that's not something our mamas did. Sometimes they started to roost and we were like, ow, so yes, education is at the core of everything I do, and wanting people to be beautiful both inside and out. It's important to recognize how to incorporate that for yourself.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Robinson, one of the things that I noticed with looking in your bio connected to education is I saw a lot of things that you were doing in the schools. And I also read that earlier on you were I don't want to say diagnosed, but you were labeled as colorblind. I'm curious about how that shows up in some of the work that you do, and also how that connects with, like, your entrepreneurship also connects with education.
That's funny. I was just talking about this story today about the colorblind piece. I graduated from City and I wanted to go to Micah. I really, really did. But when I went there, my portfolio wasn't together. I had no clue. I didn't have parents that said, hey, you got to have this portfolio together. I didn't have artist mentors at the time that told me how to get my art together. All I knew is I could draw and I wanted to go to Micah. So when I went there, my sister took me, and I remember being in a room with two white people at a table. And they would explain to me, yes, this is Micah, this is this, that, and that. But then when they looked at my portfolio, they didn't see color. It was just black and white drawings because I just knew I can draw. And I remember saying, he might be colorblind. It's not any color. I just took it for that. And then years later, transitioned to 2000, I would say 14 is when I think I premiered my first gallery show. And the first thing they told me was, we put all your pieces by the window because it had so much color. It brought people into the gallery. So I was like, oh, okay. So it just goes to show you how things change and how people can say one thing that can stick to somebody, but you can change the whole narrative. And right now I'm an educator with Baltimore City Public Schools as a paraeducator for pre-K. And I started out in the special ed office working, doing IEPs for students. And I transitioned from being everything from a technology teacher to now a paraeducator for pre-K. And what I've noticed with education is I draw so much inspiration from the children I work with, whether they're pre-K all the way up to high school. I've worked with the ages of, 4 to, my age, like older people who really want to get into doing things. And I've learned that art works hand in hand with the education piece because you can teach so much through visuals. Like right now with pre-K, for them to learn a lot of things deal with art. Like for them to learn how to write, it's a lot of art in that, line work, curves, all this, so it all works together. So now, me being a grown man, I'm in the classroom wearing my shirts now, and kids are like saying, oh, you do that art and you do this. So now my students are seeing the art on me. I'm like a canvas. And it's like, I'm inspired by them. They're inspired by me, and it all works together. And the building I'm in now is so hybrid, where I jump from managing a retail area in an art gallery to a Zoom class. Like I've been offered a whole week of Zoom and online digital classes with video production and visual art. So it's like, it's not even work anymore. It's just that education piece had turned to like a transparent, like give take relationship with students, and it's awesome. So yeah, that's where we are.
Thank you for sharing that. One of the things that stands out about that story for me is the ways in which sometimes people can be so quick to label our children. And, through your work, it demonstrated that that was not an issue for you at all. In fact, like you said in the other scenario, your stuff was placed by the window because it was so vibrant. And then that also then informed your work later. So I really love hearing about that. I'd really like to hear from Dr. Lee in the ways in which your background in education has informed some of your business practices and how you approach business.
Yeah, so like I said, I was raised in a family of educators. My parents are both teachers. My younger sister is a teacher. I'm a teacher. And so, when we were growing up, education was maybe our number 2 priority. God was the number 1. So I became passionate about learning. I like to know things. One of my mottos is everything is information. I like new knowledge. I like to learn new skills. I like to figure things out. And this is something that my parents really cultivated in us as kids. And that's been a real blessing in my life, especially as it relates to my business and entrepreneurship, because the truth is that a lot of the things that I do a lot of the skills that I have that I use to make additional income come as a result of these various skills that I've learned. So as you know, Rasheem, I learned to sew a little bit when I was a child, and I did not appreciate it back then. But as an adult, when I started figuring out how to use my creativity, I bought my first sewing machine. I learned to sew. I started making skirts and selling skirts because that was the easiest thing for me to learn how to make. I learned how to upholster furniture because I had a chair that was that was torn and I wanted to fix it. I didn't want to have to buy a new chair. So I learned how to fix it. And then there's folks asking me, can you fix my chair? Or can you make my ottoman? Or, I design and create t-shirts now with my sisters using my Cricut maker and my little Cricut press and so on. So all these different skills that I have picked up over the years have come in handy for me in terms of being able to supplement my income. And I think that for me, being curious, cultivating a curious, a curiosity about life, being curious about how things work and what are other people doing to achieve their goals and so on. All of that attitude has really led to me being where I am today in terms of my entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I could definitely see how that curiosity feeds into it. And also, I feel like there's also aspect of like necessity combined with curiosity. Like, I need this. Let me try to see if I can figure out how to like make this thing or make it happen. Thank you for sharing that. And of course, we have Dr. Rebecca Dupaz, poet extraordinaire and all of the things. How does your background show up in your work, your like education background? How has it informed your business practices and approach to business?
I really feel like I'm a teacher everywhere, all day, right? I can't really escape from it. And I think about poetry, especially as like expanding my classroom. Even though I left the traditional classroom space in 2012, I'm now teaching at a museum. But I used to call it my first life, my second life, and my third life, referring to poetry, like how I would sort of compartmentalize the way in which I was showing up in the world. But for the longest time, poetry was my way, not only of expanding my understanding of the world, but hopefully sharing perspectives with people and maybe influencing the way that they understood the world. So even when I'm writing a poem about a relationship that didn't work, or who my grandmother is, I always approach art as a platform that I have to be responsible with, because there's the potential that I might influence someone, and hopefully it's going to be in a positive way. So I don't think I know how to turn that off. So I know it's embedded in all that I do, especially with my art. And I think that for the jewelry making, which just started in the fall, it was actually my escape from that. So that's the interesting thing for me. I just finished my PhD program, and I was so tired of thinking critically. I was so tired of research that I needed an outlet. And I hadn't been writing. I hadn't been finding that creative voice. And I just decided to pick up something and be creative in a way that had nothing to do with writing and nothing to do with imagery. And then I found myself randomly creating jewelry.
I love it. I definitely could appreciate the aspects of a desire to activate different sides of your brain and engage with a different type of intelligence, and then out of that, something beautiful came. I have like 8 of your rings. So Angela, I want to pose this question to you first and ask the question around, what were some of your first experiences, understandings, or relationship with money? And what is it, how is it now? What has changed? What has remained the same?
Wow. It's interesting that that question was asked to me, and I'll share why towards the end. But growing up, looking at my parents, I was able to recognize that money was both a tool as well as a divider. It could get you to be able to give and purchase and show your love, but it could also cause some drama when you're not on the same accord with people that you share money with, or with your own finances, or whether it be just poor budgeting habits. My my way of looking at money now, I still see it that way, but I choose to see money as the tool and not the divider. So I think for me, it can still be used that way. We have the power to use it the way we want to use it. So it's definitely a tool. It's definitely something that I think, I'm not one of those people to say, oh, you don't need money. You're good. And just be. I think money is very beneficial. I have been able to take my daughter on many of trips because of being able to have the means to do it. But I've also gotten myself in the position of feeling torn. I've watched my dad spend money. Like, I work hard, I'm gonna look like I work hard. I'm gonna look, I'm gonna look good. I'm gonna look the part because I work like it. And then I've watched my mom, who was, I'm gonna save for a rainy day. And so it was extremes. And for me, I was in the middle, and I had this battle in my head because it was, sometimes I felt like I should look fly, then other times I'm like, I gotta keep everything here. And so I was in a constant battle. And it wasn't until just recently, with the whole COVID-19 Corona situation, that I had a moment of anger, because when things happened and I didn't feel like I was in the position of where I wanted to be, and I'm gonna be very transparent, that's just who I am, so y'all about to learn some business. But when I wasn't in a position that I wanted to be during this whole pandemic, it angered me. I was pissed because I said I worked too hard. I've been in this game too long to let the governor come on the TV and say we shutting down, and where I was last month is not how I look this month. Now, granted, I'm still in my house. I'm still eating. Everything is fine. I'm blessed, but I did not have the position of how I wanted to be. I was not in the position that I wanted to be in when the situation happened. So I got angry. In March, I decided I'm going to manifest, believe, and create the impossible miracle. And I don't know the how. And what I had decided was, on the other side of Corona, I will be debt free. That's what I said. I planted the seed, and God and the universe did the watering. And I can say, with the exception of my house, I have a plan for my house to be paid off. But with the exception of my house, I am now debt free. And so that happened. And it's not because I looked at money as I needed. I looked at money as the tool for me to be a generous giver. I looked at money as the opportunity for me not to have a lot of stress. I looked at money as, the opportunity for me to help other people understand how to budget and how to plan better. And so, yes, money can pretty much be very beneficial to you, but it's not what it's about. It's the love of money. You have to love people enough to know that, money is just that. It's just a way of showing your love, and use it in different ways.
That is amazing, debt-free, and about to have your house paid off. Listen, I will take the class.
Yes.
I will sign up for it. But I love how you say that, like, just balancing that in between, like, I worked hard, I want to look fly. I also have to be responsible. Like, all of those things exist, and all of those things are real and true. I want to take a moment to say hello and thank you for joining us. For the 15 people, eyeballs that I see on Facebook that are joining us live, feel free to write your comments. And I want to go to you, B. Robinson, and ask you basically the same thing around your relationship to money. What was your original first learning of and understanding of money? Yeah, what is it now? What's the same and what's different?
Yeah, at a young age, I was exposed to, I guess, the money used as a tool through my parents. So I had older parents, so I was always bored. I really, really was. But I can clearly remember, if this was middle class, now, looking back now, if this was middle class, I'm pretty sure my parents were like right here somewhere. But I didn't know it when I was young, because I had the things that I needed. Like, if I needed a bike, my father, he worked in construction, so he brought home all these bikes from houses that he got out. Did he pay for them? No, but he got them and he provided. So all I knew was the things I needed, I had it. My mother, she kind of managed the money. I clearly remember my father would come home with his paychecks and give it to my mother. So it's like she dictated where the money was going. She was a cook, he was a construction worker, and the two, they worked together as far as finance. But one thing I did notice at a young age is they probably wasn't saving the most as far as like, yeah, well, if you go to college, you're gonna have this money aside. It was like, for the time being, you're taken care of, you have the clothes you need, our bills are paid. It was like that. And that's how I saw money. It wasn't until I took a business class at Morgan, I came home and I had to do a questionnaire like, so what do you guys think about money? And the things they said, it blew my mind. My father was like, well, it's money, you can't die with it, you gotta spend it. Like, oh, that's how you feel about it. And my mother was like, yeah, you gotta save it, for the whole rainy day thing. So my mother had a whole file cabinet full of all like birth certificates, pay stubs. She had everything organized. So she was obviously the planner here in this situation. My father was like, I'm going to spend it. I'm going to buy what I want. I got to pay the bills and I'm going to give it to her and I have a little bit for myself. So that's all I knew. And I didn't learn that lesson until like I was in my 20s. I didn't know what they thought about money. And now I'm looking at it, I see the power that it has as far as saving and managing it. Because as an artist, we're all over the place. Sometimes we're just spending stuff. I want to do this. And we're just investing in random things, but not looking at the bigger picture. As a child, I knew I wanted to be an artist, but I didn't know the business aspect of it. Like I didn't know I should save and buy this and do. But now looking at it, it's like 2 years from now, I didn't have a lot in my savings account. So now I'm learning how to save money. And with the whole COVID-19, and it really did impact everyone in some form. And I look at it now, and it's like, I'm actually doing better now than I did last year because now I have a savings now. So I know once that money comes in, I need to put some to the side and invest in my business, but also have some stored here. So I'm coming in here, even though the foot traffic is not coming in, I've managed my money a little better now because I wasn't looking for the time being just to say, oh, I got it, I'm working, and then it's gone. Now I'm looking at it whereas, oh, I have money to the side, but I'm just in here nurturing my gift. I'm in here just, because God is supplying. In the midst of this, he's still supplying. So I just stand still sometimes and just watch things happen. And I'm excited about how I'm learning how to budget my money now as an artist. And I think a lot of us artists and creatives don't practice that enough. And I'm glad I'm to the point now. I'm still learning how to, but I'm also seeing the advantage of knowing how money can work for our future and for the time being. Yeah.
Love that. Love that. It's nice to have balance of examples. I feel like you and Angela have that as a similar experience. Another thing that I feel like you and Angela have as a similar experience is both of y'all businesses, for the most part, are brick and mortar. And both of you also touched on it a little bit. If either one of you or both could expound a little bit and talk about more how your business was impacted by COVID in terms of what pivot did you need to make structurally from having a foot traffic brick and mortar business. What was that pivot like for you?
Well, like the doctor that spoke right before me, I'm sorry, I don't have her name.
Rebecca Dupaz or
Kendra?
blue shirt?
Nope, black shirt.
Oh, Crystal.
Okay. My apologies. But like Crystal, I have a lot of, I always say I'm too creative and have too many skills to ever be without. And so for me, it just made me transition to where I was going sooner. I've always had in mind to get the virtual pieces up and running more. And so my virtual side picked up more. My creative side had to pick up more. Like Crystal, I have a Cricut and a heat press making shirts. I have the ability to help people in coaching, but not just face to face. So helping them on Zoom, but also while they're in their kitchen and I'm in my kitchen, I'm showing them how to cook, how to shop at the grocery store. So with all the technology we have now, what it did was actually kind of fast forward me to where I've already saw myself going. Anyone knows me, they know that I love to travel. And so I would say I started back probably about 5 years ago. I had a 7-year plan of how, when my daughter went to college, which is now she's going to 11th grade, of how I was going to do so much more traveling. And so I had in my mind different ways that I was going to be able to be in St. Lucia somewhere, be in Costa Rica somewhere, but still serving, still being a instrumental part to the community, still being able to actually profit in some way, somehow on the beach or wherever, right? And so those things, those ideas were already there. Those ideas were already there, but they just kept being put on the back burner because there were so many other things in front of me. And so as Corona did what it did, I was able to push it forward. I was able to focus on those things more. And no disrespect to, you know, the challenges that it has created for many, to the lives that were lost, but it really served a lot of good. And I see a lot of blessings that came out of it. It was a movement for me to just go with what I already had. And it wasn't a feeling of panic. It was a feeling of it's time. And now is the time, and now is the push that you needed. And so I just pretty much pulled out my resources of what I already knew, what I already had, where I saw a need, and it just all came together, and it's still all coming together.
Beautiful pivot. I really love how you started that. I have too much talent, too much skills to ever be without. Because that, to me, says someone who knows the value of like what they have within them that, you know, no one can take from you, you know, so I really appreciate that. Brian, did you want to speak to the pivot around brick and mortar, what that shift was like for you?
Sure, I'll speak on the brick and mortar pivot. It was a time, it was weird because I had just moved into this building in January. So February 22nd was the opening. Everyone came through. Oh yeah, come on. Oh wow, I'm gonna do 2 events every month. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be fantastic. My business was built on community. Like a lot of my art was, first it started with me introducing it through social media. So I post pictures. Oh, I didn't know you do paint. I thought you just did film. No, I like to draw. So that created this whole surge of, I got to put images out. Then I jumped on Instagram, put more images out. Then I said, oh, I have a body of work. Oh, I have a bigger body of work. Oh my God, I have shirts. I have all this stuff. So I hit the community. So I let this art out these 4 walls, which for years I didn't know how to do it. So I did it. I was trying to do every community event, from the small ones and Why Not Lot to in someone's house to artscapes, everything. Like I was going around writing to coordinators of events, like, hey, with a car full of stuff, like, hey, I'm here. And
wow.
I don't know where this might go to, but some of these events, I wasn't paying anything. I was just being transparent and just riding up, telling them what I do. And I'm ready to set up. And I was doing it and I was loving it. And that energy from the community just kept my art going. That's like my inspiration. So I'm feeding off of them and out just selling, smiling at people, enjoying the weather. And it's not even like I'm working. I'm just sharing my art. And that was keeping me going for a long time, to the point where my art was growing. I was being inspired faster, and I need a spot. Like my place had too many paintings. It had too much going on. I was knocking holes in paintings. I had too much going on. So I was introduced to an opportunity to come into a building with a mentor of mine, and we came into this building. Black people came into this building, and we set up shop. And like I said, February 22nd, I set up open house. I was in here loving it, and then the corona hit. I was like, I'm not wearing no mask. I ain't wearing no gloves. It's cool. It's cool. School's closed. We're still getting paid though. I'm in a union. We still get paid. Then the after school program stopped. Hold on, wait. That's the art part. That's stopping. Me and kids, we're working on these film projects. It's awesome. One film called Phase 1 about an outbreak in the school.
Wow.
We had to stop doing that, and a lot of my evening classes stopped. So now I'm like, oh, well, guess what? I can still run to the studio and work there. That was a sign. That was a sign. I need to be in the studio doing my art anyway. So I'm in here. Okay. People stop coming. Oh, the news just, everyone was going crazy. We heard the news. Now all of a sudden I'm wearing masks. I'm wearing gloves. I'm using extra hand sanitizer. The people that's coming in here, I'm like, hey, should I shake? So all that weird stuff is happening, and for a while you don't get the same foot traffic. If you got these walls, people are not going to come because they're watching the news and they're trying to be safe, which they should be safe. And I was left in here just thinking. I needed that time, so it gave me a time to think. It gave me a time for myself where I wasn't that business person. I was that person that was like, in a sense, starting over and turning that wheel and trying to recreate new ways to get your love out there. So I'm in here like, this is my farm now. I got to keep feeding my animals. I got to keep nurturing my art. So I'm in here just setting up stuff, moving stuff around, rearranging things, because I'm preparing for what's to come. And I was staying busy. Like I was coming out of the house almost every day. I should have been a better hero, but I was definitely coming out, and I was coming to this because this became my sanctuary. I had to keep fueling it. I couldn't stop. So with that, I was able to do other things, focus on my animation, learn more about accountability, like being in a location from 12 to 7. Like artists don't know how to do that sometimes because we're like, nope, I'm bored. Let me go home. So now I have to stay here and really be in the environment. And somebody said, I came to your shop, you're not there. I have to learn these things. So it helped me to press the pause button, revamp a lot of things. And now that things are kind of slowing up, I'm happy. Like I'm content. And when people come, I have things set up. Like I'm prepared. Like my palate is ready for you to indulge upon. So that's what it did to me. It stopped a lot of my classes, but now my classes are picking back up, dude. This camera, how we all here right now. So things are changing for us, but because we are creative and because we can adapt, because we are strong people, we can still get through it. And that's what's happening right now. And I'm excited for the new, the newness that we have going on now. And I pray that everyone else can take advantage of what's to come as well.
That's beautiful. I think one of the things that all of you have is there's not just the action or the steps of entrepreneur. There's an entrepreneurial mindset that takes place that allows you to be able to pivot, that allows a person to say, I'm going to put my stuff in my car. I'm going to ride around to these events. I'm going to show them my stuff. And, they're either going to say yes or no. Or even to say, okay, how can I pivot? How can I pick this up? How can I change? Another thing about all of you is I feel like you all do so many things. Rebecca, I feel like you're a really good example of you wear so many hats. Could you talk a bit about the balancing of the hats and really talk about the difference that you would identify between being an entrepreneur and having a job?
It's a good question. It reminds me, if I can flash back to a couple of years ago when there was this debate on Facebook about, poets with real jobs and those who did poetry for a living, like whether or not one should be more respected than another. And I remember feeling, I guess, unsure where to fall in that debate. I kept my mouth shut because I have a 9-to-5, yet for the longest time I was kind of running around doing everything I could possibly do poetry-wise. And I think from the outside looking in, some people were commenting that I was doing too much, that I needed to slow down, but art doesn't seem to be a job for me. And so that's why the question is so interesting. I've never considered it a job. You know what I mean? Like I teach, I've taught in a classroom. Now I teach at a museum, and poetry for me has always been a passion, even though I found a way to monetize it. You know what I mean? I was selling books, I was selling CDs. In terms of a balance though, I tend to go, with my spirit. Sometimes I have to sit down and remind myself that I owe it to myself and I owe it to my art to balance out my day more so that I'm still writing and I'm still memorizing and I'm still working on my craft as an author, as a poet, that I am making rings, that I'm working on this novel, that I'm doing all of these things. And I don't have a formula for it. And so when people ask me, like, how do you do it? I honestly say I don't know, because I think that if I sat down to think about it, I wouldn't have so much joy. Like if there was a calendar that I kept where I set an hour aside for poetry and a day aside for baking rings, and I started forcing myself into those creative spaces, I think that my art would suffer. And so for me, it's like I have this day job, and during coronavirus, and I love it. I don't mean to minimize it by calling it a day job, but from 9 to 5, I have an obligation as an educator, right? And during COVID-19 especially, we are Zoom monsters. Like from 9 to 5, we are Google Hangout, Zoom, your project, my project, what do you need from me? And I feel sometimes a bit stifled by that because I want to get back to something that brings me joy, and that's my poetry, and you know, it's my art. So when the evening comes, I've never set aside the evening to be all poetry, but I allow my spirit to take me somewhere. And people might call that balance, but for me, it's really just, it's sort of following my gut and making sure that I'm not ignoring all of the talents that God gave me. I was really smiling when Dr. Hardy said that basically I have too much talent to be broke, because my grandfather always made up scriptures. So I don't know if I'm about to paraphrase one or make one up, but the whole idea that your talents will make room for you. Certainly I feel that way on a financial level. To go back to the earlier conversation, it's always been a supplement for me. It's been a little bit extra in my pocket. And I think that the first time I took it seriously is when I was able to set aside enough to take my family to Disney World. Like for some people, that's a thing that might be regular, but the way my pockets are set up, if we buying plane tickets and tickets into a park, like that's a big deal. You know what I mean? But outside of that, when I think too much about structuring it around how much am I making, like I feel like that's an area where I need to learn. I really need to learn that. It's not that I'm suffering from it, but I'm not maximizing my potential in that area, because I've come into it from a poetry makes me feel good. I love being on stage. People, they're listening to me. You know what I mean? Someone said that I said what they've always been thinking. That's where my mindset has been. And for the sake of not being repetitive, I'm just sort of following that feeling, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. It also makes sense around what you say around it not necessarily like feeling like a job. And I really also love what you said about your talents making room for you. I feel like Dr. Lee is similar in that she wears many hats. I think in addition to wear melanated, there's the sewing, there's like tell us about the differences between the original question around the difference between having being an entrepreneur, having a job, and or maybe it might be contextualized as having a side hustle, you know?
Yeah, so for me, the way I look at the, kind of conceptualize the difference between a job and my entrepreneurship is my job kind of takes care of what I have to do now. So I go to work every day and I do my job so I can collect my paycheck and pay my mortgage and go to the grocery store and all this stuff. And for me, being an entrepreneur is about maximizing my ability to create value for myself and my family, which leads to building long-term wealth. So that's how I conceptualize the difference between the two. And I've, had conversations where folks feel differently about it, and that's fine. But for me, that's how I kind of look at the difference between the two. And I do a lot. And part of that is a personal, what you might call a character flaw or personality trait. I don't know. I get bored. I always want to be doing something else. Okay, I've figured out how to do this. It's time for me to figure out how to do something else. I'll put this stuff aside. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it's a waste of money. So I have had to have some serious conversations with myself about what that looks like. Some of these things make me money and some of them lose me money. I recently took up leather crafting because I just knew, I had never seen a Black leather crafter. I'm like, I'm going to be a Black leather crafter. I'm going to make some stuff for some Black folks and it's going to be great. And I'm going to have the fist and everything. And it took me trying it every day for a couple of weeks throughout this Corona season. And after I'm like, yeah, I don't really enjoy this as much as I thought I would. And that was hard because I bought like rolls of entire hides of leather that are still rolled up in my house. I have to be responsible with the resources that I have been allowed to be a steward over. And sometimes, it comes from a good place of wanting to set myself up for success. And so I'm wanting to learn more things and try more things and so on. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that's one of the lessons that I learned from entrepreneurship that nobody told me that. That's one of these things that you pick up and you learn from experience. And my hope is that, everybody doesn't have to learn every lesson from their own experience. I'm hopeful that somebody who's listening can take away a lesson from what we're all saying, so that we can just continue to build upon each other's experiences to create the lives that we want to create for ourselves. And for some people that includes entrepreneurship, and for some people it doesn't, and that's fine.
I love it. I feel like, so much of what everyone is saying to me is still connected to a mindset. Even in the way in which you all seem to follow your bliss, right? There's a way in which Rebecca is following her bliss. There's a way in which Brian is following her bliss. There's a way in which Crystal is. There's a way in which all of you, Angela, all of you are following your bliss, and you're also solving a problem. One of the things that you said that really spoke to me, and I think it's important in terms of like people who are listening now, is what is something, Angela, I'm going to put this question to you. What is something that you know now as an entrepreneur that you wish you had known when you first started?
Well, I think for me, it's more in not just in entrepreneurship, just as a person. You have to have enough power to let power go. There is a thin line between making it happen and allowing it to happen. And I think as an entrepreneur, and to be quite honest, as a African American, like we have this mindset that success only comes when we daggone near kill ourselves. Success only comes when you burn a midnight oil 360 days of the year and you get 5 days vacation, or that you have to have a hustle mentality all the time. And I don't know if it's my birthday's in 10 days. I don't know if this is 43 sitting in. I don't know if this is just being self-employed without any corporate backing or anything since 2008. I don't quite know what the pivot was with this. But at some point I said, the level of success that I want, that I desire, that I envision for myself, it's no way it's going to come just from all me. It's going to have to be something bigger than me. It's going to have to be a force outside of me. It's going to have to be a divine order that's going to step in and help out, right? And so I started to take a step back. I still work hard. Like my first client was at 6 a.m. today. I'm not saying that I sit home and say, oh, this is cool. No, I still work hard, but there's a different mentality between hustling and doing what you have to do and holding yourself accountable. There's also a different mindset that I have now that I didn't before. I remember meditating and I was so frustrated and so overwhelmed, and I said, I'm just going to sit here and meditate. And when I came up now, I can't say I made this up. I don't know if I did. I don't know where it came from. But when I came out of meditation, it was, you're never going to be completely finished. It's never going to be all done. So stop making that your focus and just remember to have fun. And that statement, poem, whatever came to me, and I've been saying it forever and ever for, I would say, it's probably been about 6 years now. And so when I go to bed and something's not completely done, or when I have emails still on the email thing, I'm okay. Because if I look back at what I did today, I've served a lot. I've done a lot. I have a long checklist. And for the most part, after I do what I do in the morning time for my peace and, my peace of mind and my quiet time, I go from working until the end of the day, whether it's, taking a break to be that mom I need to be. But for the most part, when I lay my head down, I have put in the work. And it's never going to be completely finished. And I will beat myself up if I rate my level of success on completion. If I rate my level of success on, oh my goodness, I can't get a good night's rest because I have this to do. No. That's, so yeah, if I was sitting down speaking to the 20-year-old Angela, 20-year-old entrepreneur Angela, I would just say, and this is something you have to learn, so she probably wouldn't listen, but I would just tell her, it's
Right.
okay. Allow things to happen. You know, yes, there are some times where you got to get in there and make it happen, but more times, 9 times out of 10, you can do things in a manner and in a fashion of believing and knowing and having a calmness and a stillness about you. So I'm a lot more calm and still than how I was when I started.
Mm-hmm. I like to put that same question to B. Robinson. What is something that you know now as an entrepreneur that you wish you would have known when you started?
Sorry, I was just trying to balance the noise. Woo. Me younger, I was all over the place. Like I was everywhere. I was cutting out business cards, trying to make websites. I was trying to do everything. So I think looking back now, I would have told myself to network and help other people do things that I could not do. Because I think I wasted a lot of time trying to do everything and not really knowing exactly what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to be creating. Another thing I would do if I can actually email myself when I was younger, I would not have read the email because I did not follow up with emails. I didn't follow up with phone calls. I was just going with the flow. And I think I missed a lot of opportunities because I didn't follow up. I wasn't building those relationships because those same relationships you had 10 years ago can come back and help you now because I'm an example of that. So that's one lesson that I've learned now is to have that to build relationships and let other people really take that expertise and mix it with yours, and you can grow your business faster. And if you pick the right people with your discernment, it will help your business, I think, be a little bit more successful. I've also learned to not really compare my gifts to other people's gifts. So like what's going to happen on their time will happen in their time. And I think that's what put me on. I stopped doing art for a lot of years because I was doing film and stuff, and you start seeing other artists do the similar things, and you feel like your success was not moving as fast as what they define their success was. I just stopped, and that's what I'm saying. That's when the painting came in, because that was in 2013 when the art really helped me take another pivot and say, you know what, let me focus on me and let me focus on my art and what I love to do. And once I did that, I was able to not rush, take my time and just do what I love. And with that, my motto to create every day was develop. And that's what I do. Whether it's complete, whether it's a masterpiece or not, each day I put something else out in the atmosphere to operate in my craft, whether it's a quick sketch, whether it's a edit, or if I'm writing a little piece of poetry or something I just draw and ball up really fast. I'm still practicing that gift. And I wasn't doing that years ago. And I think now I'm better at that with communication, following up, and just sticking to what I love and not really trying to compare it to what she is doing.
I love it. I definitely see trends, and you guys are all doing different work. So, Rebecca, were you hard-headed when you were younger too? What advice would you be giving yourself that you wouldn't be listening to?
I wish that I would have affirmed my spirit much earlier. I think that I needed to tell myself that I was talented and deserving, and that I was good enough to create a space for me. If it were not for a friend in high school, I would have never shared my poetry on stage. If it wasn't for my mama after that, if it wasn't for my mentor in college, I would have never gotten to an open mic and never been on stage. And so I have to really spend time thinking about the ways in which people have pushed me and acknowledging the ways that I didn't push myself earlier in life. And so I remember the first time I shared a poem, the host at the time, I'm indebted to him in so many ways, bass man out of Baltimore. He stood with me and he held on to me tight so I could stop shaking and I could read my poem from the paper. And now when people see me, they can't imagine that I'm a ball of nerves on the inside. They don't hear it in my throat the way that I do, right? But now I'm in a position where I'm telling people, if you have something to say, know that it's worth it. Know that somebody can heal from it, even if it's you healing from hearing yourself saying it to somebody else. And so in my mid to late 30s, now in my 30s, I'm encouraging people the way that people encourage me, because I know what it feels like to sit on your talent and to not believe. And I know that things happen as they should, but I just wonder how my life would be different if I had more faith in myself earlier. Like there was a period of time when I was braiding hair I always feel like I can do something. You know, I think it's why from the outside looking in, I do so many different things, because if I'm gonna start it and I'm gonna figure it out, much like what somebody else said on the panel. But I just wonder if I had the faith and the confidence the peace that I have now, I just imagine how much further I would be with my art, with my writing, with my jewelry.
I think that's huge. I think that's definitely a huge piece, and I feel like it's probably something a lot of people, and even still, you know, sometimes I think about what would I tell my past self, and then I think about what do I need to tell my future self right now.
Yeah.
What is my future
I still
self?
need to hear it.
Yeah. I want to go to the chat really quick. We have 5 more minutes before we're going to wrap up the show. Ty Coleman just said, hi, Crystal, with a whole bunch of heart eyeballs. Bronwyn said, hell yes. I'm not sure at what point they said that. And Megan Lewis said that she's a huge admirer of Brian's work. The question that I want to roll to Angela at this time is, what for you have you heard are like around some of the biggest misconceptions about what it is to be an entrepreneur? I know one of the things that I hear all the time is I'm you know, just like day one, I'm going to be balling, I'm going to be a boss, all of these things. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've heard about that?
I have actually a few that comes to mind, and I'll kind of tie them all together. One of the quotes that fits this topic is, an entrepreneur will stop working 8 hours for someone else so they can work 22 hours for themselves. It takes the ability and the desire to be able to put those 22 hours in. And so one of the biggest myths is that everyone should be an entrepreneur. And in a perfect world, that sounds great, but we all have gifts and talents and bring something to the table. And entrepreneurs need to be able to hire someone, right? And so if we're all entrepreneurs, sometimes you have to know yourself well enough to know that I don't want to be bothered after 5 o'clock. I want to go and do my 9 to 5 and put my time in, and I don't want to give extra time, or I don't want people to have to, you know, reach out to me after hours. So that's one thing. Know yourself well enough to know that it's entrepreneurship for you. And if it's not, it's okay. It's like someone saying it's college for everyone. You have to know yourself well enough to know if that works for you. And if it does, what type of entrepreneurship should you be looking to do? Do you have a heart to serve? Understand that, yes, you may have the freedom, but you slightly still have a boss, because who you're serving has to be considered your boss in a way. Now, that word may be, you know, a little too strong for some people to swallow that. But if I didn't consider my clients, my customers, if I didn't consider them someone that I need to be accountable to, if I didn't consider them that someone that, you know, I had to be respectful to as far as my time, or had to answer to in a way, right? Then I would not be where I am today. I would not be in the position to say that, hey, I've been rolling like this and improving since, you know, 2008. Like, I've been self-employed since 2008. A lot of businesses don't last that long. Not in our community, not in my industry, not in our field. And so in a slight way, I look at the people that I serve as my bosses, as people I have to be accountable to. Now, that does not mean that I don't have the freedom to schedule how I want. That does not mean that I don't have the ability to say, look, I need a break, to cut it off. But there is a mindset that goes with being an entrepreneur. There is a mindset that goes with serving the community and being in a service industry. And so I think the biggest myth is, one, everyone should do it. Know yourself well enough to be honest and just say it's not for me, or that's not the life I want. I have a best friend who, for the most part, understands that, hey, I'm happy where I'm at, and I don't have to do it like this, like I see the beauty in what I'm doing, and everyone's not meant to be just, you know, an entrepreneur. So know yourself, and also know that even if you decide to go that route, that you still have to answer to someone, you know. And so there is a sense of freedom, but there is also some accountability that should be there.
Mm-hmm. Right. So as you heard my computer fuss at me and say it is 7 o'clock, I want to thank you. There's so much more that I want to say, and I hope, and I imagine that a lot of people got plenty from everything that everyone said. So much around the entrepreneur mindset. You know, you all are in different backgrounds and still like that, for lack of a better word, because this word sounds more aggressive than I mean it to be, but that grind, that that push or pull towards something to be and do more. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go to the chat really quick. Brahma said, hell yes to debt free. So that was for you, Angela. And Shonda Burnett said, that's real. Some of us should feel the value of supporting friends who are entrepreneurs. So I think that that's also a big thing. And I love that you use that as an example. You know, it may not necessarily be for you, and that's okay. I want to give everyone an opportunity, if you can drop your links in the Facebook group for people who, under the video, for people who want to check it out later, or if you want to drop it in the chat for me and I will drop it in there. Or if you just also want to say, like, what is your handle? Where can people find you socially? So I will start with Brian. Where can people find you socially? What's your handles on all of the medias?
I was so about to rant about being an entrepreneur. I was so going to rant
and
talk about how I don't like being molded. I don't like signing sheets that says I'm here 7:45. I will leave at 2:45. I don't like that.
I also want to say, like, what is your handle? Where can people find you socially? So I will start with.
I ran out of time. Oh, that's Rebecca.
No, we're here. We're still here.
Okay, great. So I was gonna go all the way in about that, and that's cool. That's cool. So
you like, I'm ready. Listen, come back again. Come back on the show.
I will. The Black Genius Art Show. The Black Genius Art Show at Facebook, Instagram, and the website. It's all the same.
Black Genius Art Show. I like to say also, I am a big fan.
Thanks.
The Black Genius Art Show. I love everything that you do, Brian. I love how you're able to just merchandise. I love that the characters are so authentically Black. I love that it's just like, when I see something that's yours, I know that it's yours. Like, I love that it has that feel to it. Like everything from the videos. I think I saw a children's book, I saw a purse, I saw a pillow. Yeah, incredible. Just absolutely incredible. All right, Rebecca, where are your handles at? And not just the poetry, but those rings. I wish I had one of those rings next to me. Rebecca makes some of the most beautiful rings, and her business is called Middle Finger by Bex. I'm gonna let you talk about it.
First of all, I want to apologize to Brian, because I was attempting to put my handle under the chat and then it started to play, so forgive me. I should have just waited. I was trying to follow instructions and it was too much. So my handle, for the most part, people can connect with me at Rebecca Dupaz, which is my name, Dupaz for the last name. For my poetry, it's A Dose of Dupaz. A friend in the poetry world gave me that name a long time ago. But whether or not you use A Dose of Dupaz or Rebecca Dupaz as a website, it's going to take you to the same place to find my poetry, my books, and my CDs. And I did put on a ring, of course. This is this awesome, I don't know if you can see it too well, but it's this amazing lion. Typically with the rings, I am repurposing them. I'm taking brooches and earrings and pendants and creating these statement pieces. And it was all because I've always wanted these large pieces and I couldn't find them anywhere. So I decided to make one for myself. And within a week, people were responding in an amazing way, and I just kept going. But like already stated, I decided to name my ring line Middle Finger by Bex. simply because they're made from my middle finger. You can put them anywhere, but they're so large that I think that they're best there. So Rebecca Dupaz everywhere, middle finger by Bex for the jewelry, and Rebecca Dupaz or a dose of Dupaz for the poetry. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Lee, We're Melanated. I definitely have some gear from We're Melanated. I have a melanated, like a mug. I think I have the Future is Melanated shirt. Where can people find you?
So you can find us at where-melanated.com or at Wear Melanated, that's WEAR, Melanated, on Instagram and Facebook. And I also have a blog about financial literacy. It's called theconstantsaver.com, because that's one of the things that I do is save. I learned very early on to pay myself first, encourage others to do the same. So check me out. Thank you.
It. And Angela, Simple Wellness, who does my hair, but right now I have Corona hair. But it's soon come to you.
Yes.
But yeah, and who does more than hair also, actually. Where can people find you?
SimpleWellnessHealth.com is our website. We also have an additional website, Simple Wellness or SW Travel. We are planning to go to Ghana March 30th of next year. So hopefully everything will be back on schedule for that. Simple Wellness Day Spa on Facebook, and Simple Wellness _ in between each word, Day Spa, on Instagram. So that's simple_wellness_day_spa on Instagram.
Awesome. All right. Thank you all so much for taking the time to share your time, your talent, your wisdom. I would love to have each and every one of you back at some point soon. If you are up to something, inbox me, let me know. I'm going to find a way for us to have a conversation about it, because I find you all intriguing and I could have talked for longer. So have a good night.
Thank you.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, with 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, and turn to a ghost, I need to know everything.